Calethorn looked at the blue planet spinning slowly on his screen. Earth, the third planet from its yellow star, home to the species called humans. He had been watching them for 3 weeks now, and everything he saw told him this would be easy. The Valari Empire had conquered 17 worlds. 17 different species had fallen before their advanced technology and perfect military tactics. Each time it took no more than 3 days to make them surrender. The humans would be no different. Kyle sat in his observation ship, hidden behind Earth's moon. His ship was invisible to human technology. They could not see him, could not detect him, could not know he was there. He watched and recorded everything. Soon, the Valari fleet would arrive, and the humans would become the 18th species to join the Empire. The humans seemed primitive. Their weapons used chemical explosions to shoot metal pieces. The Valari had plasma weapons that could melt through any material. Human ships barely reached their own moon. Valari ships could cross the galaxy in days. Humans fought each other over pieces of land. The Valari controlled star systems. Kyle opened his daily report and began typing. Day 21 of observation. Human military capabilities remain limited. They show no signs of advanced technology. Their largest weapons can destroy cities, but they are slow and easy to stop. Recommendation: proceed with standard invasion protocols. He paused and looked at the data again. Something felt wrong, but he could not say what. The numbers all made sense. Human technology was hundreds of years behind Valari science. Their military was divided into many small groups that often fought each other. They had no planetary government, no unified command structure. But still, something bothered him. Kale had observed the other 17 species before their conquest. The Zephyrians had advanced shields and energy weapons. The Crystalline Collective had ships that could phase through solid matter. The hive minds of Kepler 442b could coordinate millions of units perfectly. All of them had seemed more dangerous than humans. All of them had fallen in less than 72 hours. He switched his view to a human military base in what they called South Korea. Soldiers were training in the hot sun. They ran long distances carrying heavy packs. They crawled through mud under wire barriers. They practiced fighting with knives when they had guns. This made no sense to Kale. Why train for close combat when you had ranged weapons? Why make soldiers suffer when machines could do the work better? The Valari military was efficient. Soldiers stayed in perfect condition using medical technology. They trained in virtual reality where everything was controlled and safe. A young human woman was leading the training. Her uniform said, Captain Nari. She was small compared to the male soldiers, but they all followed her orders. She made them practice the same moves over and over. When one soldier fell down, she made him get up and try again. Weakness, Kyle muttered. They waste time on soldiers who cannot keep up. But then he noticed something strange. The soldier who had fallen was now moving faster than before. The failure had made him stronger. Among the Valari, a soldier who failed would be replaced by someone better. These humans seemed to use failure as a tool. Kale switched to another view. A human called Commander Jiho was planning an attack on an enemy position, but the plan made no sense. Instead of using their best weapons first, Jiho was sending weak units to attack from the front. The real attack would come from behind, but only after the enemy thought they were winning. Inefficient, Kyle noted. They deliberately sacrificed their own forces. Yet as he watched the battle unfold, he saw that Jiho's strange plan worked. The enemy focused on the weak attack from the front. They never saw the real attack coming from behind. In 30 minutes, Jiho's forces had won with fewer losses than a direct assault would have caused. Kale replayed the battle recording. He studied every move, every decision. The tactics were not random, they were complex, layered, designed to confuse and mislead. But why? Why not simply use superior force to win quickly? He opened files on the other 17 conquered species. Each had fought predictably. They used their best weapons first. They protected their most important targets. They tried to minimize losses. They fought logically. Humans seemed to fight artistically. The next day, Kyle observed a human training. facility in what they called the United States. An engineer named Soo-hyun was teaching soldiers how to build weapons from broken parts. She showed them how to turn cooking supplies into explosives, how to make communication devices from old electronics, how to create armor from materials found in ruins. Why? Kyle asked his empty ship. Why teach them to fight with garbage when they have factories? He had never seen anything like this among the other species. When the Zephyrians lost their weapon, factories, they surrendered. When the crystalline collective's technology was damaged, they became helpless. But these humans were learning to fight with anything they could find. Kale opened a new file. He labeled it Human Anomalies and began making notes. Anomaly 1. Humans train for scenarios where they are outnumbered and outgunned. Anomaly 2. Humans use complex tactics that appear inefficient but achieve unexpected results. Anomaly 3. Humans prepare to fight with improvised weapons and materials. Anomaly 4. Human failure seems to lead to improvement rather than replacement. Samagiya's list grew longer each day. He watched a human scientist named Dr. Minho working in Antarctica. The temperature was so cold it would kill most known species in minutes. Minho wore layers of clothing and moved slowly, but he was studying life forms that survived in the ice. He was learning how creatures lived in conditions that should be impossible. On the same day, other humans were living in deserts where the heat would cook Valari flesh. Others lived on mountains where the air was too thin to breathe. Others lived in cities so crowded that disease should have killed them all. Kale checked his files on the other 17 species. Each had evolved on worlds with stable, comfortable conditions. They lived in the environments that suited them and avoided places that did not. If their homeworld became dangerous, they would die or leave. Humans seemed to live everywhere and anywhere. They adapted to conditions instead of avoiding them. That night, Kyle could not sleep. He kept thinking about what he had observed. The data all said humans were weak. Their technology was primitive, their society was chaotic, their military was divided. But something felt wrong. He spent the next day watching human entertainment. They told stories about war, about fighting against impossible odds, about heroes who never gave up. Their games simulated combat and survival. Their sports were competitions where people fought to win. Other species told stories about harmony and cooperation. Their entertainment focused on peace and understanding. Their games were about building and creating. Humans seemed to find pleasure in conflict. Kale opened his communication system and sent a message to Valari High Command. Request: additional time for observation. Human behavior patterns require further study. The response came back quickly. Request denied. Invasion fleet departs in 90 days. Complete your report. 90 days. Kyle had 90 days to understand what was bothering him about humans. 90 days to figure out why a species that should be easy to defeat was making him feel nervous. He looked at Earth again, the blue planet with its white clouds and brown continents. Home to billions of humans who had never faced a real threat from space. They had never needed to unite against an outside enemy. They had never been forced to show what they could really do. For the first time in his career, Kale wondered if the Valari Empire was making a mistake. He began a new report. This one would not go to High Command. This one was for his own understanding. Personal log, day 22. The humans are not what they appear to be. Their weakness may be a strength I do not yet understand. Their chaos may be a form of order I cannot recognize. Their conflicts may be preparation for a war they do not know is coming. Kale saved the file and returned to his observations. He had work to do. He had a species to understand. And he was beginning to fear that 90 days would not be enough. I'm below him on the blue planet. Captain Nari was training her soldiers for night combat. Commander Jiho was studying historical battles where small forces defeated large armies. Engineer Soo-hyun was designing weapons that could be built in caves with basic tools. Dr. Minho was documenting how life survived in the most hostile environments, on Earth. They did not know they were being watched. They did not know an invasion was coming. They were simply doing what humans always did. They were preparing for war. Kale spent the next week watching human military exercises around the globe. What he saw made him more confused than ever. The humans did everything wrong, yet somehow it worked. In the mountains of what humans called Afghanistan, Captain Nari led a small team through hostile territory. They moved at night, avoiding roads and open spaces. They carried only basic weapons and limited supplies. According to Valari military doctrine, they should have used air support, heavy weapons, and overwhelming force. Instead, they moved like shadows. Kale watched through his sensors as Nari's team approached an enemy position. The enemy had better weapons, more soldiers, and defensive advantages. Any logical species would have either brought more forces or chosen a different target. Nari did neither. She split her small team into even smaller groups. She sent them to different positions around the enemy camp. Then she waited. For hours, she waited. The enemy guards grew tired, they became careless. Some fell asleep. Only then did Nari attack. But even the attack was strange. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy, her team created noise and confusion in 3 different places. The enemy soldiers ran around, shooting at shadows, calling for help that never came. In the chaos, Nari's team completed their real mission and disappeared into the darkness. Kale replayed the recording 3 times. The mission was successful, but he could not understand why. The tactics violated every principle of efficient warfare. Yet they worked perfectly. He opened his notes and added another anomaly. Humans use time as a weapon. The next day, he observed Commander Jiho conducting a large-scale exercise. 2 armies faced each other across a valley. Jiho commanded the smaller force. Logic said he should defend from high ground and wait for reinforcements. Instead, Jiho attacked, but not directly. He sent small groups to harass the enemy from multiple directions. Each group would attack, cause damage, and retreat before the enemy could respond effectively. The larger army tried to chase these small groups, but they always arrived too late. Within hours, the larger army was scattered across the valley, chasing ghosts. Their formation was broken. Their communications were disrupted. Their supplies were cut off. When Jiho finally attacked with his main force, the enemy was already defeated. Kyle had never seen anything like it. The Valari won battles through superior technology and coordinated assault. These humans won through chaos and misdirection. They made their enemies defeat themselves. He decided to study human history. Perhaps their past would explain their strange present. What he found horrified him. Humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Not just small conflicts, but massive wars that killed millions. They had fought with sticks and stones, then metal weapons, then chemical explosives, then atomic bombs. Each war taught them new ways to kill and new ways to survive. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that humans had never stopped improving at war. Every defeat taught them lessons. Every victory taught them different lessons. They studied their enemies, learned from their mistakes, and became more dangerous with each conflict. Kale found records of ancient human battles. Small armies defeating large ones through clever tactics. Weak nations conquering strong ones through better strategy. Humans who refused to surrender even when facing certain death. One story particularly disturbed him. A small group of human warriors at a place called Thermopylae faced an army hundreds of times larger. They knew they would die. They knew they could not win. They fought anyway. They fought for 3 days. When the battle ended, the small human force was dead. But they had killed so many enemies that the larger army was weakened for years. More importantly, their sacrifice inspired other humans to continue fighting. The war that should have ended in days lasted for years. Kyle could not understand this. Why die for nothing? Why fight when defeat was certain? The Valari would have negotiated, found a compromise, saved lives for future battles. But humans seemed to view death in battle as honorable. He studied more human conflicts. The pattern repeated over and over. Humans fighting against impossible odds. Humans refusing to surrender even when defeat was certain. Humans turning defeats into inspiration for future victories. During what humans called World War II, A nation called Britain stood alone against a larger enemy. They were bombed every night for months. Their cities burned. Their people died. Any logical species would have surrendered. Britain fought on. Not only did they fight, they eventually won. They turned a hopeless defense into a base for launching attacks that defeated their enemies. They convinced other humans to join their cause. What began as certain defeat became total victory. Kyle was beginning to understand something terrible. Humans did not fight wars to win. They fought wars to learn. Each conflict made them stronger, smarter, more dangerous. He opened a new section in his notes, Human Learning Patterns. Then he made a discovery that made his hands shake. Humans had been preparing for alien invasion for over a century. Their entertainment was full of stories about aliens attacking Earth. Their military leaders had written plans for defending against superior technology. Their scientists had theorized about weapons that could defeat energy shields and faster-than-light travel. They called it science fiction, but Kale recognized it as war planning. He found thousands of human stories about alien invasion. In most of them, the aliens were more advanced, more powerful, more united than humans. The humans always seemed doomed. But in story after story, humans found ways to win. They used guerrilla tactics. They reverse-engineered alien technology. They exploited weaknesses in alien psychology. They refused to give up even when their cities were destroyed and their armies defeated. In one story, humans infected alien computer systems with viruses. In another, they used biological weapons that affected alien physiology. In a third, they convinced different alien species to fight each other. Every possible scenario had been imagined. Every possible strategy had been considered. Humans had spent decades thinking about how to defeat enemies exactly like the Valari. Kale checked the dates. Some of these stories were written before humans had even reached their own moon. They were planning to fight alien invasions before they knew aliens existed. He called up real human military documents, hidden among their normal defense plans. He found contingency protocols for asymmetric warfare against technologically superior opponents. The language was different, but the meaning was clear. Plans for fighting aliens. One document, written by a general named Hyun-woo, outlined a strategy for defeating orbital bombardment through dispersed resistance networks. It described how to hide military assets, maintain communication during attacks, and continue fighting even after conventional forces were destroyed. Another document discussed technology appropriation during hostile contact. It explained how to study enemy weapons, reverse-engineer their functions, and adapt them for human use. A third document was titled Psychological Warfare Against Non-Human Intelligence. It theorized about how to confuse, mislead, and demoralize alien invaders who might not understand human psychology. Kyle realized that every human military leader had studied these plans. Captain Nari knew how to fight enemies she had never seen. Commander Jiho had practiced tactics designed for battles in space. Engineer Soo-yun could build weapons using alien technology she had never touched. They were ready for a war they did not know was coming. But there was something even more disturbing. As Kale read more human military theory, he began to recognize familiar ideas. The dispersed command structure, the use of psychological warfare, the adaptation of enemy technology. These were not just human ideas. These were successful strategies from the 17 conquered worlds. Somehow, humans had independently developed the same tactics that had worked against the Valari Empire. They had studied their own history and learned the lessons that defeated armies needed to survive against superior forces. Kale sat back in his chair and stared at Earth. The blue planet looked so peaceful from space, but now he knew what was really down there. 4 billion humans who had been unconsciously preparing for galactic war their entire lives. 4 billion humans who had never faced a threat that united them. 4 billion humans who were about to learn that their enemy was real. Kale opened his personal log and began typing. Day 30 of observation. Recommendation: delay invasion, pending further analysis. Humans may be more dangerous than initial assessment indicated. He stopped typing and deleted the message. High Command would not listen. They had conquered 17 worlds. They were confident in their superiority. They did not understand what they were about to wake up. On Earth below, Dr. Minho was studying extremophile bacteria that survived in boiling acid. Engineer Su Yun was designing modular weapons that could be assembled from common materials. Captain Nari was training soldiers to fight in environments that would kill normal humans. They did not know an invasion fleet was coming, but they were ready anyway. Kale decided he needed to observe actual human combat, not just training exercises. He found his opportunity in a region humans called the Middle East, where several conflicts were ongoing. A small human outpost was surrounded by enemy forces. The outpost had 23 soldiers led by Lieutenant Hyunwoo. The enemy had over 200 fighters with better weapons and vehicles. Logic said the outpost would fall within hours. That was 3 weeks ago. The outpost was still holding. Kyle studied the situation carefully. The humans were outnumbered 10-1. They had limited ammunition, little food, and no hope of rescue. Their position offered minimal defensive advantages. Any rational species would have surrendered or attempted to escape. Instead, Lieutenant Hyunwoo had turned the outpost into a nightmare for his enemies. The humans did not fight like other species Kale had observed. They did not form neat battle lines or use coordinated assaults. Instead, they fought like predators. During the day, they stayed hidden in their bunkers, conserving ammunition and studying enemy movements. They let the enemy waste bullets, shooting at empty positions. They allowed themselves to appear weak and defeated. But at night, they became something else. Small teams of 2 or 3 humans would slip out of the outpost and disappear into the darkness. They would appear behind enemy lines, strike quickly, and vanish before anyone could respond. They destroyed supplies, damaged vehicles, and killed sentries. But the physical damage was not the real weapon. The real weapon was fear. The enemy soldiers stopped sleeping. They jumped at every sound. They shot at shadows. They began to make mistakes, argue with each other, question their leaders. The constant threat of invisible attackers was destroying their morale faster than bullets could destroy their bodies. Kale watched one night attack through his sensors. 2 humans, a man and a woman, crawled through mud for 2 hours to reach an enemy supply depot. They could have used explosives to destroy everything quickly. Instead, they poisoned the water, sabotaged the vehicles in ways that would not be discovered until they were used, and left messages written in the local language. The messages were not threats. They were jokes. Kyle did not understand human humor, but the effect on the enemy was clear. Being mocked by invisible attackers was somehow worse than being killed by them. The enemy soldiers became angry, careless, desperate to catch their tormentors. This made them easier to kill. Lieutenant Hyunwoo was using his soldiers' lives as bait, but not in the way Kale expected. Instead of sacrificing them for a tactical advantage, he was using their apparent weakness to make the enemy reveal their own positions and plans. Every enemy attack on the outpost failed, but each failure taught the humans something new about their opponents. They learned the enemy's communication frequencies, their command structure, their supply routes, their weaknesses. After 3 weeks, the humans knew more about their enemies than the enemies knew about themselves. Then Lieutenant Hyunwoo sprang his trap. Kale watched in amazement as the 23 humans launched a coordinated attack against 200 enemies. But it was not a frontal assault. Instead, they struck simultaneously at the enemy's communications, leadership, and supply lines. Within 1 hour, the larger force was blind, leaderless, and cut off from reinforcements. The humans moved through their ranks like ghosts, appearing and disappearing, striking where they were least expected. The battle that should have been a massacre became a rout. The surviving enemies fled, abandoning their weapons and vehicles. 23 humans had defeated 200. But that was not the most disturbing part. The most disturbing part was that Lieutenant Hyunwoo immediately began preparing for the next attack. He studied the abandoned enemy equipment, learning how to use their weapons. He sent scouts to track the fleeing soldiers, mapping their retreat routes. He contacted other human units, sharing the intelligence he had gathered. The humans did not celebrate their victory. They used it as a foundation for the next battle. Kale realized he had witnessed something unprecedented. Other species fought to win specific battles. Humans fought to learn how to win all future battles. He decided to study human entertainment more carefully. Perhaps their stories would help him understand their mindset. What he found was even more disturbing than their military tactics. Human entertainment was obsessed with conflict. Their movies, books, and games were full of wars, fights, competitions, and struggles. But these were not simple stories about good defeating evil. These were complex tales about overcoming impossible odds through intelligence, determination, and sacrifice. In one story, a small group of humans fought a galactic empire. They were outnumbered by millions to one. Their enemies had planet-destroying weapons. Logic said they could not win. They won anyway. They did not win through superior force or technology. They won by exploiting weaknesses in the empire's structure, by inspiring others to rebel, by refusing to give up even when their cause seemed hopeless. In another story, humans faced an alien invasion. The aliens were more advanced, more intelligent, and more numerous. They conquered Earth's armies in days, but the humans continued fighting. They used guerrilla tactics. They adapted alien technology. They turned the invaders' strengths against them. Eventually, they drove the aliens away and spread across the galaxy themselves. Cale found hundreds of similar stories. Thousands. In every one, humans faced superior enemies and found ways to win. Not through luck or outside help, but through their own determination and ingenuity. These were not just entertainment. These were training manuals. Human children grew up watching stories about defeating overwhelming odds. They played games about outsmarting superior enemies. They read books about heroes who never surrendered. From birth, humans were being programmed to believe that any enemy could be defeated if they were clever enough, determined enough, and willing to sacrifice enough. Cale compared this to the entertainment of other species. The Zephyrians told stories about harmony and cooperation. The Crystalline Collective created art about logical solutions to problems. The hive minds shared memories of perfect coordination. None of them had prepared their children for war the way humans did, but humans took it even further. Their sports were miniature battles. Two teams fought for control of territory or objects. The rules were complex, requiring strategy, teamwork, and adaptation. Millions of humans watched these contests, analyzing tactics and celebrating victories. Even, their children's games were about conflict. They played war with toy soldiers. They competed in races and contests. They told stories about heroes fighting monsters. Every aspect of human culture was preparing them for battle. Kyle made another disturbing discovery. Human languages contained thousands of words related to warfare and conflict. They had specific terms for different types of ambushes, retreats, victories, and defeats. They could describe subtle variations in tactics, strategy, and psychology. Other species had at most dozens of words for conflict. Most had fewer than 10. Humans had evolved language itself as a tool for warfare. That night, Cale dreamed of a conversation with his commander. In the dream, he tried to explain what he had learned about humans. He showed the tactical analyses, the cultural studies, the historical patterns. His commander laughed. "They are primitives with metal weapons. We have plasma cannons and energy shields. Numbers and tactics mean nothing against superior technology." In the dream, Cale showed videos of human conflicts. Small forces defeating large ones. Primitive weapons destroying advanced equipment. Desperate defenders outlasting confident attackers. His commander shrugged. "Ancient history. We are not their ancestors. We are Valari." Kyle tried to explain that humans had been fighting beings like the Valari for their entire existence. Every human military leader had studied the tactics needed to defeat technologically superior enemies. His commander stopped listening. Kyle woke up in a cold sweat. The dream felt too real, too familiar. He had been making reports for weeks, but was High Command actually reading them? He checked his message logs. His reports had been received and filed, but there were no responses, no questions, no requests. For clarification, they were not listening. Cale looked at Earth again. From space, it looked so small and helpless, but he now knew what was really down there. a species that had been unconsciously preparing for galactic warfare for thousands of years, a species that viewed conflict as entertainment and preparation, as culture. A species that had never encountered an enemy they could not eventually defeat, and in 60 days, the Valari fleet would arrive to give them their greatest challenge yet. Kyle opened his personal files and began writing a new type of report. This one was not going to high command. This one was for posterity. If anyone survived what was coming, they would need to understand what had happened. They would need to know why the Valari Empire, conqueror of 17 worlds, had made the greatest mistake in galactic history. They had woken up humanity. Below him on Earth, Engineer Soo-hyun was teaching soldiers how to build plasma weapons from captured equipment. Dr. Minho was studying how extremophile organisms could survive in space. Captain Nari was training special forces for zero-gravity combat. None of them knew the invasion was coming, but somehow they were all preparing for it anyway. Kale decided to dig deeper into human history. If he was going to understand what made them so dangerous, he needed to see how they had survived their own planet's attempts to kill them. What he found changed everything. Earth was not a normal world. Most inhabited planets in the galaxy were stable, comfortable places where life evolved in harmony with the environment. Earth was a death trap that had been trying to kill everything on it for billions of years. The planet had been hit by asteroids that wiped out entire species. It had experienced ice ages that froze most of the surface. It had volcanic eruptions that poisoned the air for centuries. It had diseases that killed millions. It had natural disasters that destroyed entire civilizations. Any normal species would have died out long ago. Humans had thrived. Every catastrophe that should have destroyed them instead made them stronger. When asteroids brought winter, they learned to preserve food and build shelters. When ice covered the continents, they migrated and adapted. When volcanoes blocked the sun, they found new ways to grow crops. When diseases killed millions, the survivors developed immunity. When earthquakes destroyed their cities, they built better ones. When floods wiped out their farms, they learned to predict and control rivers. Kale studied the most recent human disasters, a pandemic that killed millions and shut down their entire civilization for years. Instead of collapsing, they developed new technologies, new medical treatments, new ways of working and living. They emerged from the pandemic stronger than before, a financial crisis that destroyed their economy. Instead of giving up, they rebuilt it differently, learning from their mistakes. They emerged from the crisis stronger than before, wars that killed tens of millions. Instead of seeking peace at any cost, they studied what went wrong and developed new strategies to prevent future conflicts. They emerged from the wars stronger than before. This was the pattern throughout human history. Every catastrophe became a lesson. Every defeat became preparation for victory. Every near-extinction event became an opportunity to evolve. Kale realized that humans had not just survived Earth's attempts to kill them. They had learned to use those attempts as training. Their entire species had been forged in a crucible of constant disaster. But that was not the worst discovery. The worst discovery was what humans had done to their own planet in response. Other species lived in harmony with their worlds. They took what they needed and left the rest alone. They avoided changing their environment in ways that might harm them. Humans had conquered their environment completely. They had built cities in places where no life should exist. They had created artificial climates that suited their needs. They had domesticated animals and plants, changing their very genetics to serve human purposes. They had turned the planet that tried to kill them into a weapon that served them, and now they were learning to do the same thing to space. Kyle observed human space installations. They called them research stations and manufacturing facilities, but he recognized them for what they really were: military bases. Every human space station could be converted to a weapons platform within days. Every human satellite could become a kinetic bombardment system. Every human spacecraft could become a warship. They were militarizing their solar system while pretending to explore it. Dr. Minho was not just studying extremophiles. He was learning how to create life that could survive anywhere in the galaxy. Engineer Soo-hyun was not just building tools. She was designing weapons that could function in any environment against any enemy. The humans were preparing to spread across the stars, and they were preparing to fight for every inch of space they claimed. Kale made another terrible discovery. Human population was not stable like other species. It was growing. Rapidly. Most intelligent species reached a balance with their environment and maintained steady numbers. Humans kept multiplying, spreading, consuming more resources and energy every year. They were not just a military threat. They were an ecological threat. If humans spread across the galaxy, they would consume everything in their path. They would convert entire star systems to serve their needs. They would turn the galaxy itself into a weapon. But the most horrifying discovery came when Kale studied human psychology. Other species had evolved to cooperate within their groups and avoid conflict. With outsiders, they sought harmony, stability, and mutual benefit. Humans had evolved to compete, not just against other species but against each other. They formed groups that fought other groups. They created nations that competed with other nations. They built companies that tried to destroy other companies. Their entire social structure was based on conflict, but this constant internal competition had an unexpected result. It made them incredibly good at identifying and exploiting weaknesses. Every human had spent their entire life learning to defeat other humans. They understood psychology, strategy, and deception at levels no other species had achieved. When they encountered non-human intelligence, they would apply those same skills. They would study alien psychology to find weaknesses. They would analyze alien technology to find flaws. They would observe alien behavior to predict alien actions. They would turn the galaxy's own diversity against itself. Kale found evidence that humans were already doing this. Their anthropologists studied human cultures to understand how different groups thought and acted. Their psychologists analyzed human behavior to predict and influence human decisions. When they met aliens, they would have thousands of years of experience in understanding and manipulating non-human minds. Because to humans, all other humans were aliens. Their entire species was a training program for galactic warfare. That night, Kale tried to contact High Command directly. He needed to speak to someone with authority, someone who could understand the magnitude of the threat. The communication officer was polite, but firm. Observer Thorne, your reports are being processed through normal channels. The invasion timeline remains unchanged. You do not understand, Kale said. These humans are not like the other species we have conquered. They are. Observer Thorne, you are suffering from extended isolation. This is normal for long observation missions. Continue your reports and prepare for fleet arrival in 37 days. The channel closed. Kyle stared at the communication console. 37 days. In 37 days, the Volari fleet would arrive at Earth. They would expect the humans to surrender when faced with superior technology and overwhelming force, just like the 17 previous species had done. But humans were not like the 17 previous species. Humans had never surrendered to anything, not to their planet's attempts to kill them, not to natural disasters, not to diseases, not to other humans with superior technology. They had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to defeat superior enemies, and in 37 days, they would get their chance to practice on the Volari. Kale opened his personal files and began writing what he knew would be his final report. To whoever finds this record, the Volari Empire is about to make contact with a species called humans. This contact will not go as planned. Humans are not a normal, intelligent species. They have evolved under conditions that would kill most life forms. They have developed psychology that treats conflict as entertainment and preparation as culture. They have been unconsciously preparing for galactic warfare for their entire existence. When the Volari fleet arrives, humans will not surrender. They will study our technology, learn our weaknesses, and adapt our weapons for their own use. They will turn our invasion into their education, and when they are ready, they will come for us. The Volari Empire has conquered 17 worlds. We believed we were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. We were wrong. The most dangerous species in the galaxy is about to learn that they are not alone. May whatever gods exist help us, all. Kyle saved the file and encrypted it with his personal codes. Then he returned to his observations. On Earth below, Captain Nari was teaching soldiers how to fight in spacesuits. Commander Jiho was studying how to coordinate attacks across multiple planets. Engineer Soo-hyun was designing spacecraft that could function as both exploration vessels and warships. None of them knew the invasion was coming, but all of them were preparing for it anyway. In 37 days, the Valari Empire would discover what happened when the galaxy's most successful predators met the galaxy's most successful survivors. Kale was no longer worried about humans. He was worried about what humans would become. Kale spent his final weeks of observation documenting everything he could about human capabilities. Each day brought new discoveries that made his situation more desperate. He watched human children playing games that simulated space combat. They competed to see who could design the best starship, who could plan the most effective attack, who could survive the longest against impossible odds. What other species taught as cautionary tales about the dangers of conflict, humans taught as entertainment for their young. He observed human universities where students studied military history and strategic studies. They analyzed every war their species had ever fought, learning from victories and defeats alike. They had academic programs dedicated to understanding how to defeat enemies with superior resources. They had turned warfare into a science. In one university, Dr. Minho was teaching a course called Xenobiology and Hostile Environment Adaptation. The students were learning how alien physiology might work, how different atmospheric conditions would affect different species, how to create biological weapons that could target non-human genetics. They were preparing to fight enemies they had never met. In another university, engineer Soo-hyun was teaching advanced materials and weapons design. Her students were learning to build weapons from any available materials, to reverse engineer technology from incomplete samples, to create tools that could function in any environment. They were preparing to fight with weapons they had never seen. Captain Nari was training special forces units in zero-gravity combat operations. Her soldiers were learning to fight in space, on asteroids, inside space stations. They practiced boarding actions, sabotage missions, and survival in hostile environments. They were preparing to fight battles in places they had never been. Commander Jiho was developing multi-planetary strategic coordination protocols. He was learning how to command forces across star systems, how to coordinate attacks using faster-than-light communication delays, how to maintain command and control when separated by impossible distances. He was preparing to fight wars across the galaxy. Kyle realized that humans had been preparing for galactic warfare longer than the Valari Empire had existed. They had been developing the necessary skills, knowledge, and psychology for thousands of years. When the invasion began, they would not need time to adapt. They were already adapted. But the most terrifying discovery came when Kale studied human responses to their own fictional alien invasions. He found thousands of detailed analyses of movies, books, and games about aliens attacking Earth. Human military theorists had studied every fictional invasion scenario and developed countermeasures for each one. They had identified the common weaknesses in alien invasion plans. They had created strategies for defeating every type of alien force that human imagination could conceive. They had analyzed orbital bombardment and developed methods for surviving it. They had studied alien technology and theorized how to capture it. They had examined alien psychology and found ways to exploit it. One human theorist named General Hyunwoo had written a comprehensive analysis titled Defeating Technologically Superior Invaders, a study in asymmetric warfare. The document contained detailed plans for everything from hiding military assets to reverse engineering alien technology to coordinating global resistance. It read like a perfect counter to Valari invasion doctrine. Another document analyzed the psychology of alien conquerors and identified overconfidence as the primary weakness of technologically superior invaders. It recommended allowing initial enemy victories to encourage carelessness, then exploiting that carelessness for devastating counterattacks. A third document discussed technology appropriation during hostile first contact and provided step-by-step instructions for capturing, studying, and reproducing alien technology using human manufacturing capabilities. Kyle realized that humans had spent decades preparing for exactly the type of invasion the Volari were planning. Every possible scenario had been considered. Every possible weakness had been identified. Every possible countermeasure had been developed. The Volari were not invading an unprepared world. They were walking into a trap that humans had been building for generations. With only 10 days remaining before the fleet's arrival, Kale made a desperate decision. He would break protocol and contact human authorities directly. If he could warn them about the invasion, perhaps they could prepare a surrender that would save lives on both sides. He opened a communication channel to the largest human military installation and transmitted a simple message. "This is Observer Kale Thorne of the Volari Empire. We need to talk." The response came back within minutes. "Unknown caller, identify yourself and state your business." Kale transmitted his credentials and explained that he was an alien observer monitoring Earth before a planned invasion. He offered to meet with human representatives to discuss terms for peaceful surrender. The human response was not what he expected. "Mr. Thorne, this is General Park of the United Earth Defense Command. We would be very interested in meeting with you. Please transmit coordinates for pickup." United Earth Defense Command. Kale checked his databases. No such organization had existed when he began his observations. The humans had created a unified military command structure in response to his transmission. They had gone from a divided world to a unified defense force in minutes. When the human shuttle arrived at his coordinates, Kale was amazed by what he saw. The ship was clearly built using human technology, but it incorporated design elements that could only have come from studying alien spacecraft. They had been reverse engineering technology they had never seen. The human delegation consisted of representatives from every major nation on Earth. General Park introduced them. Admiral Kim from the Pacific Fleet, General Nari from Special Operations, Dr. Minho from the Science Division, Engineer Soo-hyun from Weapons Development, and others. Every person Kyle had been observing was now in the room with him. "Mr. Thorne," General Park began, "we appreciate you coming forward. How long do we have before your people arrive?" 9 days, Kyle replied. "But you do not understand. The Volari Empire has conquered 17 worlds. Our technology is far superior to yours. Your best option is immediate surrender." The humans exchanged glances. Admiral Kim spoke first. "Mr. Thorne, we've been monitoring your observation post for the past month. We've recorded your ship's energy signatures, analyzed your communication protocols, and studied your technology." Kale felt cold. "That is impossible. My ship is cloaked using quantum field manipulation to bend light around your hull," Engineer Soo-hyun interrupted. "We know. We've been working on the same technology for decades. Your approach is actually less efficient than ours." "General," Nari leaned forward. "Mr. Thorne, you've been watching us, but we've been watching you too. We know about your plasma weapons, your energy shields, your faster-than-light drives. We've been studying everything. And we've been preparing, Dr. Minho added. Every human government, every military force, every research institution on Earth has been working together to develop countermeasures for the past month." Kyle stared at them. "You have known about the invasion for only 1 month. We have been planning this for years." "Mr. Thorne," General Park said gently, "we have been planning for this our entire existence. Every war we have ever fought was practice for this moment. Every weapon we have ever built was a prototype for what we would need to fight aliens. Every strategy we have ever developed was preparation for enemies exactly like you." Admiral Kim activated a holographic display. "This is our defensive plan. We call it Operation Prometheus." Kyle watched in horror as the humans revealed their strategy. They would not try to stop the Volari invasion. They would allow it to succeed initially, capturing key Volari ships and technology in the process. They would study the captured equipment, reverse engineer it, and use it to build their own fleet. Then they would launch a counterattack. "The goal is not to defeat your invasion," General Nari explained. "The goal is to capture your technology and use it to reach your homeworld." Engineer. Suhyun smiled. We estimate 18 months to reverse engineer your FTL drives and build our own fleet. 2 years to reach Valari space. 3 years to conquer your entire empire. You cannot be serious, Kyle whispered. Mr. Thorne, Dr. Minho said, humans have been waiting for this opportunity for thousands of years. You are not invading our world. You are delivering the technology we need to invade yours. General Park stood up. Mr. Thorne, we want to offer your people a choice. You can call off the invasion and enter into peaceful trade negotiations, or you can proceed with your attack and give us everything we need to become a galactic power. Either way, Admiral Kim added, humans will be leaving this solar system soon. The question is whether we leave as friends or conquerors. Kale realized that he was not looking at representatives of a primitive species about to be conquered. He was looking at the Advanced Planning Committee for Humanity's expansion across the galaxy. I need to contact my fleet, he said weakly. Of course, General Park replied. But Mr. Thorne, you should know that we will be monitoring your communications. We are very interested in learning about your command structure, your military protocols, and your fleet composition. Kyle understood. Even his warning to the Valari fleet would become